of all, thanks for having us. We're glad we can be here. We're in Sundance. My name is Nathan. This is Chris, and that's Jade and Zach over there. And we're excited that we can talk about the problem that OC Tanner is having and how we can solve this problem, implement this problem. So the flow of the presentation will go as follows. Kind of our close, kind of our story of how we came to our conclusion of our problem. And so we're first talk about the problem, and then we'll go more into detail of our analysis. What drew us to that, and then which led us to our implementation of our decision.
So initially, we wanted to start just talking a little bit about our problem. We took time to stop and develop the problem statement. So excuse me while I read this verbatim for a second, but we felt it was important to us actually making our decisions. We came up with the problem statement. In 2002, OC Tanner began sourcing the Bravo box and added 25 additional SKUs, including 4 private brand labels, through 2016. Unpredictable costs and risk have become associated with the sourcing of these 4 brands from China. So all costs considered, is China worth it? That's really the ultimate decision that we're trying to make. Is continuing to source from China a worthwhile decision for OC Tanner and to continue to expand more and more brands into the China market.
So in this regard, we feel that OC Tanner should grow its portfolio in China. Through our analysis, we feel that the benefits outweigh the overall costs and risks.
All right, well, we want to jump into back to the story about how we came to those conclusions. We're really going to start off with our qualitative analysis first. So for us, it really made sense to go ahead and do a SWOT analysis up front to kind of lay out everything that we consider to be important to OC Tanner. So we were able to pull together this SWOT analysis and kind of start to gauge their strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats all together. What we started to notice was actually really interesting. So we noticed that a lot of these kind of counterbalance each other and kind of help that flow. So one of them, for example, is the threat of facing language barrier of sourcing overseas. Well, we remember back from visiting OC Tanner that they actually speak 54 different languages, so this might not be as big of a problem to them as it might be to another company. Another one, for example, is managing these supplier and foreign relations that they will have overseas. We also feel like their ability to create these lasting relationships really kind of counterbalances that supplier relationship as well. Another one is that from the case story, or from the case, we remember the horror story about the miscommunication mishaps that they had. And we really feel like that what counters that is their lean, focused mindset. And lastly, there's always the threat of competition, but currently they're number one in the market, in the industry, so that's also a counterbalance. So what we have left are some different threats and things like that don't have these countermeasures and counterbalances, and that's what we chose to kind of direct our presentation to for the duration of the test we will run. For example, one of the ones that we want to focus on is the threat of the tariff overseas by President Trump at 45%. And we'll see that show up in many of our tests further down the line.
And so besides the tariff, some of the other risks and costs we felt that were pretty critical to their decision were the commercial risk, intellectual property. Found that was pretty big, and some of the other costs that we felt that were important were their hidden costs and their opportunity costs that lay ahead. And because of that, we decided to do more of an in-depth analysis of those into a factor acting method. Great.
Perfect. So at this point in time, we were able to consolidate a lot of our risks and identify 13 criteria that we felt were important to OC Tanner. We were then able to take this criteria and then test it through a factor rating method to establish or to get this balanced scorecard. Some of the criteria that we felt were important to OC Tanner were things like its ability to affect the customer experience, political risk, transparency, and quality in the products that they were making and receiving. If you look at page 2 of your handout, you'll be able to see the gauge that we used when scoring each of these criteria. And you can see that at this point in time, the U.S. has a higher score that is winning by just 0.69 weighted points.
So the next big thing we wanted to jump into here was our qualitative analysis, or quantitative analysis, excuse me.
So the first thing we wanted to do was kind of look at the growth of China. So based on the data that we were given in the case, we took a trend forecast, the FDI, and as you can see, it's continually growing. Others investing in China and its growth. And so, as you can see, after that line represents the 5-year growth that we anticipate to have in China.
We felt that this was an important factor to be aware of as we were trying to make decisions in regards to whether or not to continue to invest ourselves as OC Tanner into China further. But again, we felt that this was a good decision to do moving forward. So obviously one of the big factors that we talked about was the risk of labor. You know, there's a large variability in regards to labor rates out there, as all of us know. We pulled a lot of our data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics website, the government website. And one of the things on this graph that we noticed we thought was very interesting, according to them, they rated, so the U.S. obviously is rated at a very low flexibility in regards to their labor rates, but China is rated in that medium to high flexibility rate in regards to their labor. So they have a little bit more labor risk associated with them. That's according to how the government actually ranked it. But we wanted to take actual labor rates and project them as far as what we thought things would continue at. So that Bureau of Labor Statistics website had data up to 2009. So we took it from 2009 and continued to forecast from there, again using a trend forecasting as well as a 5-year weighted analysis, kind of a weighting factor to continue. So it's weighting closest on the most current years. But we felt that obviously the rates would continue to increase because that's how it has been for the past couple of years. So this line right here represents 2017, the year that we're in right now, and we again we feel it will go up to eventually $2.52 per labor hour for a manufacturing worker. And this is again associated mostly to the rumors and everything that we're aware of, that there is a lot of flexibility and risks associated with the labor costs there in China. So we wanted to ensure that we were aware of this, although this can be a problem in regards to how high or how low it could go. We ran a sensitivity analysis on this and feel that it didn't impact the decision enough to stir us away from pursuing China.
So as with any case study analysis, it's always important to do the financial test as well and kind of start to look at how this is going to affect financially the business. So we pulled these numbers right here from, they're all in a per unit basis, and I would like to direct your attention first to the top half. Those are all the ones that we pulled directly out of the case that were given to us. Those are our known variables, and we were able to kind of lay those out side by side from sourcing in China versus sourcing in the USA. What I'd really like to draw your attention to, however, is we felt like there was a lot of hidden costs that they discussed in the case that are hard to quantify or that haven't been quantified yet. So we tried our best to be able to include a lot of those hidden costs that would be associated with sourcing in China versus sourcing in the US. We were able to break those down also into more of a per unit basis. So for example, we were able to include something called personal recovery. From the case, we learned that was something that they felt had never been quantified before, however, it is a hidden cost. So we did our best to try to quantify that per unit. Our definition of the personal recovery time would be if someone from OC Tanner were to travel to China, be able to come back, how long it would take them to recover and then come back to work, which we calculated to be about 2.5 days. Another one that I'd like to point out is this SNOP and CPFR, their planning that they would be able to take care of out there. We calculated this number based on a scenario where we considered would be good if OC Tanner were to actually take an employee and put them in China on the payroll to be able to have them on site to do a lot of that planning and a lot of things. So that cost comes out of their salary, kind of broken down into a per unit basis. So what we have come to find out after all of those things considered, as we expected, it is much cheaper to source the products through China than the US.
So with any financial analysis or any quantitative analysis, we know that there's a lot of variability. And so, as Jake mentioned earlier, we know things like tariff costs or labor costs are these variabilities that we have to deal with. So one of the things that we wanted to do was just decide the zone of opportunity. So we ran a sensitivity analysis. And what this tells us is, on a per unit basis, with a 45% tariff rate, China would still be saving $2.20 per unit. However, because we know this fluctuates, we wanted to see how much it could fluctuate before we hit a break-even point, where a new decision would have to be made. And we came to the consensus, or calculation showed us that a 59% tariff rate would be putting OC Tanner at a break-even point where a new decision would need to be made to really consider whether this tariff cost is going to be an imminent threat or not at the current moment.
So that really brings us back to our implementation that we stated at the beginning, that we really do feel, based on our analysis, that OC Tanner should continue with their sourcing options in China. We'd like to break it out actually onto a timeline to kind of give an action plan about what we would suggest that they do to be able to implement these changes. We've broken it into 3 sections, including what we should do right now, which is probably the most important, the short-term goals and the things that they should look at doing in the short term, and then also looking long-term as well to see what the opportunities are and how this can affect us. So looking right now, we feel that they should start immediately in trying to expand their private label portfolio, and they should actually do it while beginning to source kind of one product line at a time, one brand name at a time, to slowly implement and go through this change and make sure that it doesn't have a dramatic effect on the business up front, that we will catch certain problems. We also feel that they should, because they're already changing so much, they should continue their current method of sourcing and logistics, using predominantly the container shipping methods. That's what our data was calculated on, was using these container shipping methods. And we feel like that's the best option if they just continue that logistics, how it's already flowing, and just increase the volume. In the near future, we feel like it's important that they actually address some of the risks that we brought up before and haven't addressed yet. For example, they need to, in the short term, work on expanding those supplier relationships. We feel like that will mitigate the risks that they've already encountered, for example, such as the threat of intellectual property theft, or trade secrets being leaked that has happened before, or the lack of transparency that they've also encountered. Hopefully that relationship that they can establish with these suppliers over time should be able to help mitigate some of these risks. Second, we actually did take into account the currency exchange rates as well, and we feel like if they haven't already, it would be important to engage in some sort of bank forward exchange contract where they'd actually be able to lock in their foreign exchange rates at a fixed rate, so it wouldn't be quite as variable and it couldn't be quite as impactful to the business. They'd always know what they're getting at that point. Now, talking about the long term, this might actually be the biggest kicker, because as you guys have noticed, there's a couple of the tests and analysis that we've won that say that China is the best option, and there's a couple other ones that say that it might be the US. So what really pushed us over the edge is this large opportunity that we saw in the long term to try to expand into that Chinese market. There is, in the case we learned that there's that 1.4 billion people that live out there, and the more connections and the more outreach that they get to pay to China, hopefully they'll be able to expand their options out there, looking at future business growth and getting into new markets, and hopefully even changing the fact of building up that 15% of international business that they do through that China source that they've got. So all these considered, that is according to our analysis why we feel that they should continue expanding their sourcing options in China, despite the risks and other things associated. But thanks for your time, and right now I'll take any questions if you guys have them.
Could you just touch back on that last slide on the expanding of the market?
Sure.
Are you thinking that's going to help OC Tanner's ability to make their product, or is that going to create a greater marketplace?
So in the factor rating method, we actually felt that they were, in terms of quality of items, they were similar with the items that they manufacture overseas. What we were thinking more is when we went toward the plan of OC Tanner, they said that they do about 85% of their business in the United States still, and they're still expanding outside of that. So we would hope by continually sourcing through China, we would help them be able to make connections, have a bigger footprint, and further outreach and trying to touch more of the Chinese businesses and markets.
You talk about customers.
Customers, exactly,
Correct.
to try to
Improve market position with additional customers.
Correct.
And all of the information from these slides are in your handouts too, if you need a reference
Yep.
to any data that we used.
At any time, did you guys, maybe I missed it, but did you guys consider the weakening of the Chinese renminbi over the past 18 months and how that would affect OC Tanner, this currency
I think that's where it came to, as we were talking about with the forward bank exchange contract.
Yeah.
When we researched that, what that would actually do is it would allow OC Tanner to lock in a currency exchange rate with the US dollar.
Okay.
So that risk would almost be mitigated in that regards.
Lock it in.
Yes, as in lock in a currency rate that they exchange out.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So they might end up, if the market turns well for them and they're getting exchange rates, they might end up losing in that aspect. But if the market happened to take a downturn negative, they would feel that they'd always be able to consistently know what they're getting.
Understood, okay.
The hidden cost analysis that was given to you and provided in the case, did you have any concerns about any of that data at all? Did you question any of that data?
I mean, obviously there are some questions, especially with the hidden costs. They're very hard to quantify. Let's go back to that slide. So, first of all, there's the labor costs that are kind of included in a lot of these. Like the import landed cost includes that labor cost. That is hard to quantify and still increasing. So that was kind of where we went with cause of concern. And stating like when we did the sensibility analysis, saying that all things remaining equal, that was what the tariff would have to get up to get to a break even. Most likely those things won't remain even, and if the labor rate goes up, obviously those different variables change as well. So they are the hidden costs. This is only a few of the additional ones that we pulled out. There may be more on both sides. However, we just try to give a fair representation of the additional costs that you encounter while sourcing in China.
When we initially made a list of all the hidden costs, a lot of those we felt were already mitigated in regards to some of these costs already there, especially the import landed costs. We felt that one had encompassed a lot of the hidden costs that we felt had already happened as well. So we didn't feel it was necessary to continue to list the extra additional little stuff because a lot of it was already encompassed. But we definitely wanted to list extra costs, if that answers your question.
Okay. Did you come up with any kind of single break-even point for the costs in China need to be X% lower than the costs domestically before we'll pursue more China sourcing? One overall break-even.
That's a good point. So if we, well, not necessarily an overall break even in terms of percentage, but we did.
I saw this one. Yeah.
This was our closest to a break-even point because obviously we were aware that there was going to be additional tariffs that are going to be instituted. So that was the biggest flexibility factor that we wanted to be aware of.
Yeah.
So the break-even point we came to was that of about 2149.
And then you suggested expanding into China one brand at a time. Can you elaborate a little bit more as to why only one brand at a time? Why they wouldn't want to pursue 2 or 3 or all 4 brands?
Which brand?
Simultaneously. And that's a good question. What's the order? And what's the priority?
So if we remember back to that beginning timeline, which shows the history of how OC Tanner has expanded the markets, they've taken kind of a slower pace right at the start. We started with very few products and SKUs, and over the years it's gotten progressively faster. We feel like that's a good pace to exponentially pick up the pace as they move forward, but we don't feel like it'd be good to kind of do it all at the same time to be able to pick up this. If you were to encounter problems along the way or more unknown hidden costs, you wouldn't have quite as much invested. You might be able to fix one problem at a time at that point, rather than switching all of your sourcing, putting all your eggs in one basket right up front, and then trying to source that way. So that's why we figured that it was in the right now step where they start immediately implementing those and try to go one at a time as they continually build, just as they have been in their history of adding SKU by SKU by SKU.
Another factor that we wanted to make sure that we included too is especially with Trump coming into office as well. There's a lot of I'm better put it in global markets. A lot of people are a little bit nervous about stuff in regards to the NAFTA and other stuff that's going on as well. So we wanted to ease into that as we saw things kind of unfold in that regards.
just going off that, we felt that instead of finding problems with 4 different products all at once, it'd be easier to solve that problem with just the one product going on.
Oh, that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Be able to almost, not perfect, but solidify
Yeah.
the route of how you're going to do it with one product. And then if you can mitigate a lot of those risks with that one product, then you eliminate the cost that you would entail from the 3 other products.
So you would build on what you learned.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, that's a good point.
So including that kind of